The sky turned red at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. Not the soft red of sunset, but a deep, angry color that spread across the entire planet like blood in water. Every screen on Earth went dark. Every radio fell silent. And then, for the first time in human history, a voice that was not human spoke to the world. People of Earth, you have been found. You have been judged. You have 7 days. Admiral Kang Doyon was eating lunch when the message came. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 40 years serving in Earth's military, fighting small wars and keeping peace in difficult places. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. Within 1 hour, he stood in the Seoul Global Command Center, surrounded by generals, scientists, and politicians from every nation. The room was quiet. On the main screen, a creature looked back at them. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. It called itself Veller, and it spoke for something called the Galactic Council. Your species has reached a level of technology that requires our attention, Veller said. Its voice was calm, almost bored. You have 2 choices. The first is submission. You will surrender all weapons. You will stop all space exploration. Your people will serve the Council as a labor species. In return, you will be allowed to live. Doyon felt his hands become fists at his sides. Around him, he could hear people whispering in fear and anger. The second choice, Veller continued, is death. We will cleanse your planet. Every human will be removed. Your cities will be dust. Your history will be forgotten. The universe will continue as if you never existed. A young general from America stepped forward. And if we fight? Veller made a sound that might have been laughter. Fight with what? We have watched your species for some time. You have nuclear weapons that can barely leave your own atmosphere. You have spacecraft made of metal and fire. We have ships that can cross galaxies in moments. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. The creature leaned closer to the camera. You cannot fight. You can only choose how you die. The transmission ended. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then everyone spoke at once. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to pray. Some wanted to launch every nuclear weapon at the sky and hope for the best. Doyon listened to all of them and said nothing. Finally, an old man in a simple gray suit raised his hand. The room fell quiet. He was President Park, the leader of the Korean Federation and current chairman of the United Earth Council. There is something, President Park said slowly, that most of you do not know about. Something we hoped we would never need to discuss. He looked at Doyon. Admiral, please call Dr. Yoon-hana. 1 hour later. Doyon stood in a small room with a woman he had never met. Dr. Yoon-hana was younger than he expected. Maybe 40 years old, with short black hair and glasses that made her look like a teacher. But her eyes were not the eyes of a teacher. They were the eyes of someone who carried a very heavy weight. Project Horizon, she said. That is what we call it. I've worked on it for 15 years. My mother worked on it before me. Her father worked on it before her. What is it? Doyon asked. Hannah took a deep breath. Do you know what holds the universe together, Admiral? Not gravity. Not energy. There is something deeper. A pattern. A frequency. We call it the thread. Doyon shook his head. I am a soldier, doctor. I do not understand science. Then I will make it simple. Hannah walked to a small table and picked up a glass of water. Imagine that everything in the universe is connected by invisible strings. Every star, every planet, every atom. These strings vibrate at a certain frequency. If you know the right frequency, you can touch anything, anywhere, instantly. And if you pull hard enough, you can make things stop existing. Doyon felt cold. You are talking about a weapon. I am talking about the most terrible thing humanity has ever created. Hannah's voice was barely a whisper. One pulse from Project Horizon, and we can erase anything from reality. A ship, a station, a planet. It does not matter how far away it is. Distance means nothing to the thread. How is this possible? How could we build something like this? Hannah sat down heavily in a chair. Because we did not build it, Admiral. We found it. The thread was already there, woven into the fabric of space itself. Someone put it there long before humans existed. We just learned how to use it. Do-yeon was quiet for a long time. Outside, he could hear sirens. People were panicking in the streets. The world was ending, and they all knew it. Can you stop them? He finally asked. The Council. Can you stop their fleet? Hannah looked at him with those heavy eyes. I can do more than stop them. I can erase them from existence. Every ship, every station, every member of their council, I can make it so they never threatened us at all. And why do you look so afraid? Hannah stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was still red. Because once we use this weapon, Admiral, we cannot take it back. The entire galaxy will know what we can do. Every species, every civilization, every empire will look at Earth and see monsters. We will not be the victims anymore. We will be the thing that everyone fears. Do-yeon joined her at the window. Better to be feared than to be dead. Hannah nodded slowly. That is what I tell myself every night. But I still cannot sleep. Do-yeon put his hand on her shoulder. You have 7 days to prepare. Can you do it? Hannah turned to face him. For the first time, there was something like determination in her eyes. I can do it in 3. But Admiral, you need to understand something. If we do this, there is no going back. Humanity will change forever. Do-yeon thought about his children, his grandchildren, the billions of people looking up at a red sky and wondering if tomorrow would come. Then we change, he said, but we survive. Hannah nodded. Then I have work to do. She walked out of the room, carrying the weight of humanity's future on her small shoulders. Do-yeon watched her go, then turned back to the window. The sky was still red, but somehow it did not seem as frightening anymore. They had a chance. A terrible, awful chance. And they were going to take it. 2 days had passed since the sky turned red. The Galactic Council fleet arrived on the 3rd day, and the sight of it broke something inside billions of people. There were 1 million ships. They filled the space around Earth like a wall of metal and light. Each ship was the size of a city. Each one carried enough weapons to turn a continent into glass. And there were 1 million of them. Captain Lee Min-ho stood in an underground bunker beneath the city of Busan and watched the fleet on his screen. He was young for his rank, only 32 years old. With a reputation for thinking in ways that other officers could not understand, his superiors called him creative. His enemies called him dangerous. Right now, he felt like neither. He just felt small. They want us to see this, said a voice behind him. Michaud turned. Admiral Kung Do-yeon walked into the room, his face as calm as ever. Behind him came a woman Min-ho did not recognize, small and quiet with glasses. They want us to feel hopeless, Do-yeon continued. That is why they brought so many ships. They could destroy us with 100. They brought 1 million to make us afraid. It is working, Min-ho admitted. Do-yeon almost smiled. Fear is natural, Captain. What matters is what you do with it, he gestured to the woman. This is Dr. Yoon Hana. She is the reason you are here. Hannah stepped forward and placed a small device on Min-ho's table. A holographic map appeared, showing Earth surrounded by red dots. The Council fleet. In 4 days they will fire, Hannah said. Their weapons will burn through our atmosphere and kill everything on the surface. But before that happens, we are going to do something they do not expect. Min-ho looked at the map. What can we possibly do against 1 million ships? Nothing, Hannah said. That is not our target. She touched the device, and the map changed. Now, it showed something far away, in another galaxy entirely. A massive structure floated in space, beautiful and terrible, surrounded by thousands of smaller stations. This is the Citadel, Hannah explained. The home of the Galactic Council. The 12 Grand Speakers live there. They control everything. Every fleet, every planet, every species that serves them. If the Citadel falls, the Council falls. Min-ho shook his head. That is millions of light years away. How can we possibly reach it? Hannah looked at him with tired eyes. That is my problem, Captain. Your problem is different. I need time. 4 days is not enough. I need at least 5. You want me to stall 1,000,000 ships? No. I want you to stall 1 alien. Hannah touched the device again. Veller's face appeared on the screen. He is their voice. Their messenger. As long as he is talking, they will not fire. You need to keep him talking. Minho laughed, but there was no humor in it. I am a soldier, not a diplomat. That is why we have someone else for the talking. Doyen turned to the door. You can come in now. A woman entered the room. She was tall and confident, with long black hair and a smile that could mean many things. Her name was Shin Naeon, and she was the best diplomat Earth had ever produced. Captain Lee, she said, offering her hand. I hear we are going to save the world together. Minho shook her hand carefully. Do you know what you are agreeing to? I know that a very ugly creature wants to kill everyone I love. I know that talking is what I do best. And I know that if Dr. Yoon needs 5 days, I will give her 6. Her smile grew sharper. Besides, I've always wanted to meet an alien. Even an unpleasant one. The plan was simple in theory. Naeong would contact Veller and begin negotiations. She would ask questions about galactic law, about council membership, about anything that might delay the final order. Every hour she bought was an hour Hannah could use. Meanwhile, Minho had a different job. Across the planet, buried deep underground and under the oceans, humanity had hidden its true power. Not weapons that could hurt the fleet, but systems that could wake up Project Horizon. Generators, transmitters, focusing arrays. All of it needed to work perfectly at the same moment. Minho would make sure it did. The first transmission to Veller happened 6 hours later. Naehoon sat in front of a camera, dressed in formal clothes, her face showing nothing but polite curiosity. Honored Veller, she began, on behalf of the people of Earth, I wish to discuss the terms of our potential submission. Veller appeared on the screen, its 4 eyes blinking in what might have been surprise. There is nothing to discuss. The terms are clear. You submit or you die. Of course, of course. Naeung nodded as if he had said something reasonable, but surely there are details to work out. For example, what exactly does a labor species do? What rights would our people have? Would we be allowed to keep our culture, our languages, our traditions? Veller made an annoyed sound. These questions do not matter. You will do what you are told. Naturally. But our people will want to know. They will resist less if they understand what is expected. Naeong leaned forward slightly. Surely the Great Council prefers willing servants to angry ones. There was a pause. Minho, watching from another room, held his breath. You have 1 hour, Veller finally said. Ask your questions. 1 hour became 2. 2 became 4. Naeun asked about food, about housing, about education for children. She asked about medical care and about religion. She asked about the history of other species that had submitted. Every answer led to more questions. When Veller grew impatient, Naeong would apologize and change the subject. When he threatened to end the conversation, she would hint that humanity was almost ready to accept that just a few more details were needed. She never lied directly, but she never told the truth either. Deep beneath the ocean, near the coast of Japan, Minho stood in a room filled with machines that hummed with power. His team worked silently around him, checking connections and running tests. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake, one failure, and the thread would not respond. On the 4th day, Veller lost his patience. Enough, he said, his voice cold as space. Your time is over. Tomorrow, your world burns. Naeon did not blink. May I have 1 more hour? Just to inform our leaders of your decision? Veller stared at her for a long moment. 1 hour. Then we fire. And your species becomes a memory. The transmission ended. Naeun sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. Then she touched her communicator. Dr. Yoon, you have 17 hours, surrounded by screens showing impossible numbers and equations. Hannah nodded. That is enough. She turned to her team, a dozen men and women who had worked without sleep for days. Begin final preparations. Tomorrow, we change history. Outside, the million ships waited, their weapons ready. They had no idea what was coming. Nobody did. 12 hours remained before the Council fleet would fire. 12 hours before every city on Earth became ash. 12 hours before humanity ceased to exist. Dr. Yunhana had not slept in 3 days. She stood in the core chamber of Project Horizon, a room buried so deep beneath the mountains of Korea that the weight of the rock above could crush steel. The chamber was circular and cold, filled with machines that ordinary scientists could not understand. In the center stood a pillar of pure light, spinning slowly, humming with a sound that was almost music. This was the thread. Or rather, this was humanity's connection to it. Admiral Kong Doyan entered the chamber and stopped. Even after everything Hannah had told him, seeing the pillar made his heart beat faster. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Is it ready?" he asked. Hannah did not turn around. "Almost. We are making the final adjustments now. Tell me again how it works. I need to understand." Hannah finally looked at him. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "Do you know how a spider web works, Admiral? A spider sits in the center and waits. When anything touches any part of the web, the spider feels it. The vibration travels along the threads, and the spider knows exactly where to go." She pointed at the pillar of light. "The universe is like that web. Everything is connected by invisible strings that we cannot see or touch. But they are there. They have always been there, and you found a way to use them. You found a way to touch them." Hannah walked closer to the pillar. "My grandmother was the first. She was a physicist, very brilliant. In 2089, she was studying something called quantum entanglement. Two particles connected in a way that science could not explain. When you changed one, the other changed too, no matter how far apart they were." Doyan nodded. He had heard this part before. She wondered if this connection was natural or if something created it. She spent 30 years trying to answer that question. And then, one day, she found the thread. Hannah's voice became quiet. She found that every particle in the universe was connected. Every atom, every star, every living thing. All of them vibrating together in a pattern so complex that no computer could understand it. But she understood it. She understood enough. She learned that if you could match the vibration of something, you could reach it, touch it, and if you pulled hard enough on its thread, you could remove it from the pattern entirely. Doyan felt cold despite the warmth of the chamber. "Remove it? You mean destroy it?" "No." Hannah shook her head. "Destroying something leaves pieces behind. This is different. When you pull something from the thread, it stops existing. It was never there. The universe simply closes the gap and continues without it. That is impossible. It should be." Hannah touched the pillar gently, and the light flickered in response. But here we are. In another room, Captain Lee Minho was having a different conversation. His team had finished connecting all the generators and transmitters around the world. Everything was ready. But Minho had questions that nobody had answered. "What happens to us?" he asked his second-in-command, a woman named Park Jeong. "When we use this weapon, what happens to Earth?" Jeong looked at her screens. "The scientists say nothing. We are not touching Earth's thread. We are only touching the threads of the targets." "And you believe them?" Jeong was quiet for a moment. "I believe that if we do nothing, we die for certain. If we do something, we might die. Those are better numbers." Minho laughed softly. "When did you become a gambler?" "When aliens threatened to kill my family." In space, Veller watched Earth with growing impatience. The deadline was approaching, and still the humans asked for more time. They were like insects, he thought, small and weak and annoying. Soon they would be crushed, and he could return to more important matters. His second-in-command approached. "Grand Speaker Veller, the fleet is ready. All weapons are charged. We can begin the cleansing at your command." Veller looked at the blue planet below. It was pretty, in a simple way. A shame that its people were so stubborn. Wait for the deadline. Let them have their final hours. Let them understand that hope is meaningless. Yes, Grand Speaker. Back on Earth, Xin Yang stood in her office, staring at a picture on her desk. It was a photo of her parents taken 20 years ago, before her father died in an accident. They were smiling, happy, unaware of the future. Her communicator beeped. It was Hannah. "You're ready," the scientist said. 2 hours early, but we need to wait for the right moment. What moment? When Veller gives the order to fire? When their fleet is focused on destroying us. That is when their defenses will be lowest. That is when we pull. Nayun closed her eyes. You want them to start killing us before we fight back? I want to make sure we win. If we act too early, some of them might escape. They might warn others. They might come back with more ships, better weapons. We need to end this completely. One strike. One moment. Everything gone. Thought about the millions of people who might die in those first seconds of attack. The cities that might burn. The children who might never see tomorrow. How long? She asked. How long between their attack and our response? 7 minutes. That is how long it takes to fully activate the thread and target the citadel. 7 minutes. In 7 minutes, millions could die. But if they did not act, billions would. I understand, Nahon said. I will inform the Admiral. She ended the call and looked at the picture again. Her father had always said that leadership meant making choices that nobody else wanted to make. He never told her the choices would feel like this. In the core chamber, Hannah made her final preparations. Her team worked silently, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. They all knew what they were about to do. They all knew the weight of it. One of her assistants, a young man named Cho Tai-Wu, approached her with shaking hands. Dr. Yoon, I have to ask, are we doing the right thing? Hannah looked at him for a long moment. I do not know, she admitted. I know that they threatened to kill us. I know that they gave us no choice. I know that if we do nothing, everyone we love will die. But right. She shook her head. I am not sure right exists in a situation like this. Then how can you do it? Hannah turned back to the pillar of light. Because someone has to. Because if I refuse, someone else will have to carry this weight. And maybe they will not be as careful. Maybe they will not feel the horror of it as much as I do. She paused. Maybe feeling the horror is what makes us human. Tai-Wu nodded slowly. He did not understand completely, but he understood enough. The hours passed. The deadline approached. Above Earth, 1,000,000 ships prepared to fire. Below, in a chamber of light and shadows, a small team of humans prepared to do the impossible. When the moment came, everyone was ready. Everyone was afraid, and nobody looked away. The deadline arrived at midnight Earth time, in the Galactic Council Citadel. Far across the universe, the 12 Grand Speakers gathered to watch humanity's destruction. They sat in a great hall made of crystal and light, surrounded by screens showing the fleet above Earth. Each of them represented a different species, a different part of the Council's vast empire. Together, they controlled 47 star systems and trillions of lives. Grand Speaker Veller stood at the center, his pale blue skin glowing in the soft light. Fellow speakers, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber, today we remove another threat from the universe. The humans refused our generous offer. They chose death. Let us give them what they asked for. The other speakers nodded. Some looked bored. Some looked pleased. None of them looked worried. They had done this many times before. Hundreds of species had been cleansed from existence. Humanity was just another number. Veller raised his hand. Begin planetary cleansing. Above Earth, 1,000,000 ships turned their weapons toward the blue planet below. Energy gathered in their cannons, bright enough to outshine the sun. The first wave of destruction was about to begin. In the underground bunker, Admiral Kong Do-yan stood with his officers and watched the sky. Through satellite feeds, they could see the fleet charging its weapons. They could see the moment of their death approaching. Beside him, Xin Neong held her breath. This is it. This is it, Do-yan agreed. The fleet fired. Beams of pure energy shot toward Earth, aimed at major cities on every continent. Seoul, New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Mumbai, hundreds of beams falling like rain, each one capable of melting a city to nothing. The first beams hit the atmosphere. The sky caught fire. In Seoul, buildings began to shake. In New York, the harbor turned to steam. In Beijing, the outer districts exploded into flame. For 3 terrible minutes, Earth burned. Then everything stopped. The beams disappeared. The ships went dark. Every piece of Council technology connected to their central network simply stopped working. Weapons fell silent. Engines died. Communication systems turned to static. In the Citadel, the Grand Speakers looked at their screens in confusion. The images from Earth had frozen. The data feeds had ended. Nothing was responding. "What is happening?" one of the speakers demanded. "Why have the weapons stopped?" Veller tried to contact the fleet, but his communication device was dead. He tried to access the Citadel systems, but they were not responding. For the first time in his very long life, he felt something he did not recognize. Fear. Then the voice came. It broadcast on every frequency. In every language known to the Council. It was a woman's voice, calm and quiet, speaking words that would change the galaxy forever. "This is Dr. Yoon Hana of Earth, the core chamber." Hannah stood before the pillar of light, her hand pressed against its warm surface. Around her, her team monitored screens and adjusted controls. The thread was responding to them, vibrating at frequencies that matched targets millions of light years away. "You threatened our world," Hannah continued, her voice carrying across space itself. "You called us primitive. You gave us no choice. So now we give you none." In the Citadel, Veller finally found his voice. "Who are you? How are you doing this?" Hannah heard him. The thread carried his words to her, just as it carried hers to him. "I am nobody important. Just a scientist who learned a secret that your council never discovered." "What secret? What are you talking about?" Hannah closed her eyes. The pillar of light grew brighter. The thread connects all things. You built your empire on it without even knowing. Your ships travel through it. Your communications use it. Your weapons channel it. Everything you have done for thousands of years has been possible because of the thread. She opened her eyes. "And now we pull." In the core chamber, every screen showed the same thing. Targets locked. All 12 Grand Speakers. All ships in the Citadel fleet. All stations connected to the Council network. The thread vibrated with power, ready to erase them all. Captain Lee Min-ho stood at his station, his hand on the activation control. His job was simple. When Hannah gave the word, he would press the button. Everything would happen at once. Captain Hannah said, "Are you ready?" Min-ho thought about the cities that had burned. The millions who had died in those 3 terrible minutes. The children who would never grow up. The families that would never be whole again. "Ready," he said. Hannah took one final breath. She thought about her grandmother, who had discovered the thread but died before seeing what it could do. She thought about her mother, who had spent her life building Project Horizon. She thought about all the people who had worked in secret for 70 years, hoping this day would never come. "Do it," she said. My NHO pressed the button. In the Citadel, the walls began to hum. The crystal pillars vibrated at a frequency that hurt the ears of everyone present. The Grand Speakers looked around in terror as reality itself seemed to shake. "What is happening?" One of them screamed. Veller tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The humming grew louder. The light grew brighter. And then, in a single moment, everything stopped. The Citadel did not explode. It did not crumble. It simply ceased to exist. 1 second it was there, a massive structure of crystal and power. The next second there was nothing. Empty space where an empire had ruled. The 12 Grand Speakers were gone. Their command fleet was gone. Their stations, their networks, their entire system of control was gone. The thread had been pulled, and they had been removed from the pattern of the universe. 7 minutes. That was how long it took. 7 minutes from the first beam hitting Earth to the last piece of the Council, vanishing into nothing. On Earth, surviving satellites showed the fleet above them dying. Without the Citadel to control them, the million ships lost power one by one. Some drifted away into space. Some fell into Earth's gravity and burned up in the atmosphere. By morning, none of them remained. In the bunker, Admiral Doyon sat down heavily in a chair. His hands were shaking. Around him, officers were crying, laughing, or simply staring at screens in shock. Shin Naeong stood at the window, looking up at a sky that was finally dark again. The red was gone. The ships were gone. They had one, but she did not feel like celebrating. How many did we lose? She asked quietly. Doyon checked his reports. Early estimates say 8 million. Maybe more. The beams hit 12 major cities before we stopped them. In just 3 minutes, 8 million lives ended because an empire had decided that humanity was not worth saving and them. Naeong asked. How many did we kill? Doyon was quiet for a long moment. The Council controlled 47 star systems. Trillions of lives. But the Citadel itself had maybe 10 million beings. That is what we erased. 10 million for 8 million. It was almost fair. Almost in the core chamber, Hannah finally stepped away from the pillar of light. The glow was fading now, returning to normal. The thread was quiet, its work done. Cho Tai-woo approached her carefully. Dr. Yoon, are you all right? Hannah looked at her hands. They were not shaking. She thought they should be shaking. I just killed 10 million beings, she said softly. I pressed a button and erased them from existence. You saved us, Tai-woo said. You saved everyone. I know. Hannah's voice was empty. But I will have to live with this forever. Every night, I will dream of what I did. Every morning, I will wake up and remember. She looked at the pillar one more time. We won. But winning feels terrible. Outside, the sun was rising. It was a new day. A new world. A new future, and humanity would never be the same. 1 year had passed since the day humanity pulled the thread. 1 year since the Galactic Council ceased to exist. 1 year since everything changed. The universe was a different place now. The 47 star systems that had served the Council were in chaos. Without the Grand Speakers to give orders, without the Citadel to enforce laws, ancient rivalries exploded into war. Species that had been forced to cooperate for centuries now fought each other for control of abandoned stations and empty fleets. And through it all, a single blue planet at the edge of the Milky Way watched in silence. Admiral Kong. Doyon stood on a balcony in the new United Earth Assembly building in Geneva. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with the weight of the past year. Behind him, the greatest hall ever built by human hands stretched into the distance, filled with representatives from every nation on the planet. Today was the anniversary. Today, they would remember what they had done and decide. What they would do next. Beside him stood the 3 people who had made it all possible. Captain Lee Minho, now promoted to Admiral himself, wearing his dress uniform with uncomfortable pride. Shin Naeong, still working as humanity's voice to the stars, her diplomatic skills more valuable than ever. And Dr. Yoon Hannah, quiet as always, her eyes still carrying the weight of the thread. Are you ready? Doyon asked her. Hannah shook her head. I will never be ready. But I will speak anyway. The ceremony began. Leaders gave speeches about courage and survival. Videos played showing the destruction of that terrible day. The burning cities, the falling ships. 8 million names were read aloud, one by one, honoring those who had died in those 3 terrible minutes. When it was Doyun's turn to speak, he walked to the podium and looked out at the crowd. Politicians, generals, scientists, artists, the best of humanity gathered in one place. 1 year ago, he began, we faced extinction. A force greater than anything we had ever imagined came to our world and demanded our surrender. They gave us a choice between slavery and death. We chose a third option, paused, letting his words settle. We fought back. Not with ships or missiles or armies. We fought with knowledge, with courage, with the willingness to do what was necessary. even when it was terrible. His voice grew softer. We killed 10 million beings that day. 10 million lives ended in an instant because we refused to die. Some of you think we should feel proud. Some of you think we should feel ashamed. I think we should feel both. In the crowd, Hannah closed her eyes. She had said something similar many times in the interviews and hearings that followed the event. She never called it a victory. She always called it a tragedy, Do-yeon continued. But what is done is done. We cannot change the past. We can only choose the future. And that is why I am here today. He gestured to the screens around the hall. They flickered to life, showing ships of every shape and size approaching Earth. Alien ships. Not warships, but transports. Refugee vessels. Medical carriers. The council fell. Millions of beings were left without homes. Species that had been conquered and controlled for centuries found themselves suddenly free. But freedom without protection is dangerous. The wars that followed have killed more than we did on that single day. He straightened his back. We could have hidden. We could have stayed quiet and let the galaxy burn. But that is not who we are. Humanity has never been good at looking away from suffering. So we reached out. We offered shelter. We offered protection. And they came. The screen showed images of the past year. Alien families arriving at Earth stations, looking scared but hopeful. Human doctors treating wounds that no Earth's medical book had ever described. Children of different species playing together in parks that had once held only humans. This is our new purpose, Do-yeon said. Not to conquer. Not to control. But to protect. We have the thread. We have power that no other species can match. And we have chosen to use that power for good. He looked directly at the camera, knowing that billions of eyes across many worlds were watching. To everyone who has come to us for help, you are welcome. To everyone who threatens peace, we will stop you. And to everyone who wonders what humanity stands for, this is your answer. We are the shield. We are the shelter. And we will never, ever stop fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves. The hall erupted in applause. Not just from humans, but from the alien representatives who had been invited to attend. They did not understand all of humanity's words, but they understood the meaning. After the ceremony, the 4 heroes of Earth stood together on the observation deck of the assembly building. Below them, the city of Geneva spread out in all directions, a mix of old buildings and new construction. Above them, the stars shone bright against the dark sky. One year, Minho said softly, "It feels like a lifetime." Neho nodded. So much has changed. Sometimes I forget what the world was like before. I remember, Hannah said. I remember every day. They stood in silence for a while, watching the city lights flicker below. Finally, Do-yeon spoke. Do you think we did the right thing? Minho answered first. We survived. Our families survived. Billions of people are alive because of what we did. That has to count for something. Naeong was more thoughtful. Right and wrong are complicated. We killed to save. We destroyed to protect. I do not know if that is right, but I know it was necessary. Nell looked at Hannah. She was the one who had pulled the thread. She was the one who carried the heaviest weight. I think about the children, she said finally. Not ours. There's the council species. There were children on the Citadel when I erased it. Children who never did anything wrong. Children who never had a chance to grow up. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. I tell myself it was necessary. I tell myself there was no other way. And maybe that is true. But those children are still dead because of me. That does not change, no matter how many lives we save. Minho put his hand on her shoulder. You carry too much alone, Doctor. Akana shook her head. Someone has to carry it. Better me than someone who does not feel the weight. A soft beep interrupted them. Naeon checked her tablet and smiled slightly. Incoming transmission from the outer colonies. They want to join the alliance. Do-yeon raised an eyebrow. Which ones? All of them. 12 systems. 300 billion beings. They want to live under our protection. It was the largest request they had ever received. An entire sector of the galaxy choosing to trust humanity, choosing to believe that the species that had erased the council would not do the same to them. Do-Yan looked at his companions. What do we say? We say yes, Minho said. That is what the alliance is for. We say yes, Nahon agreed, but carefully. We need to make sure they understand what they are joining. Hannah said nothing for a moment. Then she nodded. We say yes, and we make sure that what happened to the council never happens to anyone again. Naong began typing a response. Do-Yan turned back to the window. Outside, a new transport ship was landing at the spaceport, carrying more refugees from distant wars. The stars used to scare me, he admitted. So much darkness, so much unknown. But now, when I look up, I see possibility. I see hope. Minho laughed softly. You are getting poetic in your old age, Admiral. Maybe, or maybe I am just tired of being afraid. They watched the ship land, its lights blinking in the darkness. Inside were beings who had traveled across galaxies to find safety. Beings who believed that humanity would protect them. Hannah spoke one last time, her voice soft but certain. We started this by killing. We continue by saving. That is the only way to make peace with what we did. Do-Yan nodded. Then that is what we do, for as long as it takes. The night grew deeper. The stars grew brighter. And on a small blue planet at the edge of the Milky Way, humanity began the long work of building something better from the ashes of what they had. Destroyed, they did not know what the future held. They did not know what challenges would come. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty: they would never stop trying. And somehow, against all odds, that was enough.